Hi, welcome to 321 Connection. We are going to talk to Drumright singer about Special Olympics. So, how did you get involved with Special Olympics?
Well, way back when I had my son involved in swimming, and we learned about Special Olympics and knew that we wanted to keep him swimming as much as possible. So when that opportunity presented itself, we said, why don't we have JT start swimming with Special Olympics? And that's kind of how I got started initially.
Wow. Did you always want to be a swim coach?
I wouldn't say I always wanted to be a swim coach. I would think it's more I wanted to be involved. I just didn't know how I was going to get involved. And the way it kind of happened was we had a swim coach leave the area, and then someone came up and asked me, would I like to coach the swimmers? And I said, you know, let's do it. You know, I really enjoy being at the pool, really enjoy seeing the swimmers do the best they can. So with that, I became the swim coach at Area 30 Special Olympics probably about 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while now.
How many years have you been a swim coach?
So like I said, it's been about 15 years as swim coach, but I've been involved in the area now. It's got to be 20 years at least.
Wow.
20 to 21 years, yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, Luke.
When COVID happened, how did people feel about the lockdown?
With COVID?
Yes.
Yeah, COVID was kind of a sad time, right? We were swimming February of 2020, and we got near the end of February, and if you remember, everything got very uncertain. And I think we had one practice in that first week of March, and then we had to stop all swimming due to COVID. And that was just because everybody didn't understand COVID, right? And we wanted to make sure we protected all our athletes, and we didn't want anybody to get, you know, sick or hurt or anything like that. So we shut down. And just to add a little bit more, you know, as a swimmer, right? We were out of the pool for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So Special Olympics didn't get going again until January of this year.
Wow.
So it was a long time out of the water for a lot of our Area 30 Midland athletes.
That's gotta be sad.
Yep.
After COVID, how do people feel happy after the pandemic happened?
Yeah, so after the pandemic and we got everybody back in the pool in January, I immediately saw the team get together and all the fun that all the swimmers like to have in the lanes and talking to one another. And you know, Luke, sometimes the swimmers talk to one another in the different lanes, right? But we don't want to do too much of that. We want to keep swimming, right? But as a coach, I let all that kind of go on because I knew everybody missed each other and really wanted to get back in the water and have fun together again.
How many swim teams are there?
So if you're talking swim teams in Michigan, we have about 30 or so areas in Michigan. But we usually get about 9, sometimes 10 in our regional swim meet. And it all depends on whether people are able to make it into Midland in March. But after it's almost 4 years now, we'll have our first swim meet at the Dow High Pool next March.
Wow. Looking forward to it.
I know. We want to get you back in the water with all the other swimmers.
So what's your favorite memory about Special Olympics?
My best memory?
Yes.
Wow, I don't know if it's just one memory. I think it's just, as a swim coach, seeing somebody complete that first race that they'd never done before. So you know how it is when you do your first 25 or your first 50 or your first 100 meter? It's seeing that swimmer able to do a whole length of the pool for the first time is really those are the things I remember.
Is there any more information about Special Olympics?
The best way to get information, you can go to the somi.org website and look for the northern region, and underneath that you'll find Area 30, or you can go to our Facebook page, Area 30 Special Olympics Midland, and you can get information there, some contacts, and you can get a hold of the people that give you the information you need to get involved.
Well, thank you for joining Virtual Connection.
All right, great to be here, Luke. Thanks for an invitation.
John Meisinger, Luke Drumright. Welcome to Virtual Connection. Thank you. Sign off. Hi, welcome back to 321 Connection. This time we'll be interviewing Debbie Eats about Cultivate for the coffee shop. So, welcome to Virtual Connection.
Thanks, Luke. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
You're welcome. So, how did you get involved in Cultivate?
Oh, I'd like to say that it was a very straightforward thing, but it was kind of, we took twists and turns, and it took a while for me to get there. Our church had decided that we wanted to do something for the community.
Okay.
And that also was a very twisty, turny path to where we ended up with a coffee shop at the mall. And the person who was in charge of starting this effort doesn't even like coffee.
Wow.
Yeah, but here we are with a coffee shop. So when I was hearing about this, he was telling us about a coffee shop where you don't pay for the drinks and you don't even have to donate anything. In my mind, I was thinking, that's never going to work. But at the same time, I was almost jumping out of my chair saying, I'm in, sign me up. I want to be a part of this.
Wow.
So I talked with him, and over the course of several months, we had conversations about how I could be involved with it. So I started volunteering right away when we first opened back in 2019.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you always want to work for Cultivate?
No, that's the crazy thing.
Wow.
I was teaching high school at the time when Cultivate opened, and I just figured that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was teaching high school science. I loved it. I loved the kids. I loved the people that I worked with. And then this coffee shop came along, and it was really a surprise to me that, you know, in my heart, I just had this great desire to be a part of the coffee shop. So I had been going in this direction with teaching for so long. I was teaching for 26 years. And then all of a sudden, we took a left turn, and I ended up at the coffee shop.
Wow. How many years did you work at Cultivate?
So Cultivate opened in June of 2019, and I started working pretty much right away. So
Okay.
we've been open for about 3.5 years.
Wow.
And even during COVID, we were able to still serve coffee. During that time when restaurants couldn't have people come in, they could only do takeout or delivery. We, if you know what the shops are like at the mall, we just moved some tables up to the front door of the mall, and we did walk-by coffee. You could stop and get a coffee and keep going. And it was really hard to get through that time, but we did, and we're still there and going strong.
Wow. Why is there a donation to coffee?
When we were first starting to develop this idea,
Okay.
there were different conversations happening about, you know, should we charge for the coffee? Should we ask for donations? Should we say, please donate $3 for a cup of coffee? And then our pastor said, hey, here's a crazy idea. Let's not charge for the coffee at all, not even a suggested donation.
Wow.
Let's just say, hey, come on in here and get some coffee, and if you want to donate, of course that's great, that's fine, but we really don't want people to feel like if they don't have money, they can't come in. We want everybody to be welcome. We want everyone to feel like they're a part of the Cultivate family.
Okay.
And part of that means making sure that people don't feel like they have to pay for their coffee.
So, what was your favorite memory about Cultivate?
Favorite memory? There are so many of them. For the most part, some of my favorite times that I've had there have just been meeting people, getting to know people. We play, our favorite card game at Cultivate is Skip Bow. And once we ask you to play Skip Bow, you know you're in. You are part of the family. And so just having those times with people are probably my favorite things about Cultivate.
Wow. So why do volunteers have relationships with other people?
The whole point of Cultivate is about relationships. The coffee really is not the main point of why we exist. It's so that it is a place where people can connect with each other, relationships can grow. That is the main reason why Cultivate exists. So when people come in and we get to talk with them, we get to know them, they do really become part of our family. We had a Thanksgiving dinner the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving, and probably 50 people came. And they're all people that we knew and that we consider part of our family. That's the most important thing about what Cultivate does.
Wow. Sounds like you had a lot of fun.
We did. We did. It was good food, too.
Is there more information about Cultivate?
Yes, we do have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. It's Cultivate Coffee and Tea. That little funny little and sign, the ampersand, not so Cultivate Coffee and Tea. And then the best thing to do to learn more about Cultivate is to come in and meet us and talk to us and have some kickin' hot chocolate or some Guatemalan coffee.
Wow. Well, thank you for joining
Hey.
the Virtual Connection.
It was my pleasure, and this has been so much fun. I appreciate it.
Well, this is Luke, Drumright, and Deb Eats of Virtual Connection. Thank you for joining. Hi, welcome back to Virtual Connection. This time we'll be interviewing Rachel Dahl about nutrition and teaching. So, welcome to Virtual Connection.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, how did you get involved with nutrition and teaching?
How did I get involved with nutrition and teaching? So I did my undergraduate degree at Michigan State, and I first actually started in building construction management.
Okay.
And my whole family, especially the men in my family, have done a lot of labor-intensive building jobs. Even my mom, who's a painter by trade, so a lot of construction workers. So I went into that field not knowing what else to do, because that's what I grew up around. And while I was there, I started taking a couple of nutrition classes. It sounded interesting because I really have always enjoyed sports and that connection with food and movement. And that's kind of how I found my way into the field and realized there was a whole major that I could jump into called dietetics, and I'd be able to work with people and provide what I learned in the classroom back into the field and be able to teach that to those individuals too. So there's a couple of different fields of nutrition. You can do food science, which is a lot of lab and kitchen, and I wanted to do the dietetics route, which I would be more with people, so interacting more and more with people. So I finished my bachelor's in dietetics at Michigan State and then found my way to Buffalo, New York. It was either going to be Buffalo or Tulane, and that year, and this was for my graduate work, that year Katrina hit, so Hurricane Katrina. So it was really good we didn't find our way down to Tulane, New Orleans. We would have been right in the middle of that. So for some reason, the powers that be sent me to Buffalo with more snow, and I ended up spending 10 years in Buffalo, New York, working on my graduate degrees. So I have a master's in exercise science, a PhD in exercise science, and then I was eventually able to combine all of that with my nutrition background and do my dietetic internship and become a registered dietitian. And during all of that time, I started doing teaching assistantships. So not only was I working in the field of nutrition, but I was able to take what I was doing clinically and bring it back to the classroom and teach other students and give real life experience about, about real life patients and how it was working, how my education was working for me, and how I was able to teach them about how my education was working for me. So that was the kind of the big connection with nutrition and teaching, and then I just continued on and kept teaching. So.
Wow. Did you always want to be a teacher?
I think I did on some level. My mom always thought I would be a math teacher because I really do enjoy math and like to do a lot of mental math in my head. And but I get to use math and nutrition all the time too, so it kind of worked out. Maybe my mom was right in a sense. She thought I'd be a math teacher to elementary, middle school, but I found that I really enjoyed college-aged individuals, and they had a little bit more freedom, and we were able to work within that freedom with college kids versus elementary, middle school, and high school. So yeah, that's kind of how I found myself there. I always like to share information, and so maybe it was just a natural progression, and I should have just listened to my mom to begin with, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
How many years have you been a teacher?
So I have taught when, let's see, I was in the middle of my master's and started doing kind of lab work as a teaching assistant, and that was a little more than 15 years ago. And then from there, I was an adjunct professor while I was working on my dissertation. At one point, I was working at 4 different colleges, a class here, a class there, a class there, and I often would drive to the wrong place because it was too much, right? So teaching at a lot of different places, and that led me to coming back to Michigan and teaching at Saginaw Valley, where I continue to teach.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does swimming go into nutrition?
Swimming and nutrition. So you would want to know, right? Because you're a swimmer, I know this. And we've talked a little bit about it before. So being that I combined nutrition and exercise science, I also did a certification in sports dietetics. So I really got to round out, that exercise piece with nutrition, because it's very important to know what to eat and kind of when to eat it for our own individual body. Okay. So we have our guidelines that we can start with, but I have to know who you are. I have to know who Luke is. I have to know your schedule. I have to know what types of food you like, what types of food you don't, what your goals are for swimming, how long you're swimming, and are you doing other workouts the same? Do you have other activities like this, right? So how does that work into your day? So swimming and nutrition is huge in terms of really paying attention to timing. So I always say timing is everything with sports nutrition. And the other thing that we talked about before was hydration. Hydration is hard with swimming because it's one of the sports where it's a self-cooling sport. So you're in the pool and you're like, oh, that's refreshing. Then we may not think of grabbing a glass of water or a glass of Gatorade as we would if we were outside playing baseball or something. We're more likely to grab it, when we're out in the elements. So swimming comes with its own special considerations for nutrition, so especially hydration. And I have found doing some swimming, not nearly as much as you, that I have never felt hungrier after any activity except for swimming. Like, I am so hungry after swimming.
Wow.
Yeah, the expenditure, right? So after you get done with an hour or 2 or whatever it may be of swimming, the first thing you want to do is probably eat and fuel and recover. And so swimming is not only do we really pay close attention to hydration, but also making sure we're refueling and getting enough to eat so that we can swim again the next day.
Wow. Did you have a favorite memory of teaching?
A favorite memory of teaching? There are a lot. I would say I have the best time in class when I can do what I first started out doing with teaching. When I can talk to the class about an actual patient, obviously not sharing the patient's information, but kind of a case study, and talk to them about a personal experience that I had with a patient, a client, or an athlete, and I can, kind of go through the assessment, what the patient was like, and the plan, and get their feedback and have them help me work through that, because this was a real individual that I get to kind of share that experience with the students. And when you story tell in teaching, I think that's when you really make a connection. So when I've made those big connections with students through storytelling, through my life experiences, those are my favorite memories.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
So who came up with the idea of teaching in nutrition?
Who came up with the idea of teaching in nutrition? For me, or for me, or just in life general?
Well, like, who was the person in SPSU that came up with the idea?
That is hard to say. I would guess probably one of the people that hired me, Dr. Jenny Bridges. She retired. She does live in Midland, so maybe she'll see this. I'll tell her. She was at SVSU for 35 years. And side note, we went and saw Wonder Woman together. She's one of my mentor heroes, and as well as Dr. Bridges. And she had been there 35 years. Kinesiology has been at SVSU for 50 years. So she has been there probably 70% of the time that kinesiology, exercise science, has been. And so I know that she had a huge hand in making sure that there were some nutrition classes within our field to help make that connection that nutrition has with exercise science. So hats off to her. I would say it's her fault that I got a job at SVSU. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where can I find more information?
Where can you find more information? What type of information specifically do you think?
Online stuff.
Online. Okay, so you always want to, depending on what you're looking for, you want to make sure you're getting it from a really good source. So for nutrition, I like to go to our academy's website. The people that test us and test for our registered dietitian exam, so that's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. They are great resources for sports, for any clinical disease states that are impacted by nutrition, or that nutrition can help treat, because food is medicine. You always want to make sure that you're maybe going to, so if it's, let me give you an example. Gosh, let's say the clinical disease that someone is working through is heart disease. So you want to go to the American Heart Association. They're going to have really good resources. So if you go to the foundation or the association that's connected with a clinical disease state, that's a great place to start.
Well, thank you for joining Faith-to-One Connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
You're so welcome. So that was basically all about nutrition and teaching. I want to thank everyone who joined Faith-to-One Connection to come. And also, I'm going to have a surgery coming up, and I'm hoping that I'll be better when I come back to recover. So thank you for coming to Faith-to-One Connection.